Welcome back to an update to our goals. So far, we had one goal, and that was to have clean code, such as the name of the class says it all. Same thing goes with the field variables or the methods that we created. They should always try and say what it does and specific to that. The second goal we're going to add is called separation of concern. What this means is basically that a method should not do more than what it says it does. So if it's getting the name, it shouldn't do more. If it's talking, it shouldn't do more. Now, separation of concern is two parts. One is that the method names are really just what it says and nothing more. The second part is not to do anything that's not part of your class. So let's say person class, and there we see sometimes we're doing something like system out println, or we're doing, let's say I saw it another where, here talk. Who determines what the talk would do? See, the system.out println that we're utilizing twice here, it's perfectly fine when we're running in a console. But what would happen if we weren't running in a console? What if the user who's utilizing our classes is inside a virtual reality and there is no console? At those moments, this thing, well, it wouldn't, but most of the time it doesn't exist. It will throw us a runtime exception saying there is no such thing as a system out println. Okay? So what we're going to do is try to restrict our class to only utilize what it needs to do, and that's it. So that means we shouldn't have any system.out println unless we're saying print name or print something. So to do this separation of concern, I'm going to utilize one of our labs. It'll make it a bit more cleaner than the person class, which hasn't been really built. So we're going to just do one of them just to give you an idea of what's going on. So over here, we have a start engine, and based on the state of the airplane, it will print out one of these messages, right? But that's not the job of airplane to do. That's the job of whoever is utilizing your class. They could output it whatever way they want. So what we need to say is if the start engine works, we could return something as a value, or we could just let it run smoothly, and that when an issue happens, like these, they look more like errors, we let our the caller know about them, right? So how would we do this? Well, in this case, we have a couple of errors, right? And this one. The only time that there is no error is when the engine is off. So how can we do that? Well, if we got errors, we could create some custom exceptions. So inside our airplane, we're going to create a new package. Let's call it, we're already inside airplane, so we're going to just call it exception. And inside that exception, we're going to create a few exceptions for the errors that we could have. So one of them, again, make sure the name makes sense. So in this case, airplane exploded. And again, don't forget to put in the word exception to keep with the standards. And then we have to extend and say which type of exception do we want, checked or not checked. This is up to you to determine. For now, we're going to go with runtime exception. And we're going to bring in Control O to bring in our runtime exception over here. And we're pretty much done. So now here, rather than saying case exploded and utilizing system.out println, we're going to say throw new, and we're going to say airplane exploded exception. And the message that we got, we know it's an airplane error, so we're just going to say airplane exploded. To be honest, if we want to, we could just make one without a message as well, and that would be fine. Because, well, let me just erase this first of all. Because this break is not needed anymore because it's not in a reach, and we're good to go. because the one who's calling start engine will have to deal with it. Right now, because we made it unchecked, there's no issue. If we wanted it to be a checked, well, maybe we could replace this with an exception. And over here, we don't want to manage it. We want the caller to manage it. So we could say throws airplane exploded exception. And then because of this, we need to go into our switch and circle this with a try and catch block. I'm not going to show you how I would do this, but I'm going to just do this quick one so you could see it right here. Remember though, that only one choice gets picked at a time. So there's an easy way of doing this. But anyway, so in this case, we try the start engine. And if it's exploded, we want to write a custom message. We could use the custom message we wrote here, but we could also say airplane error, airplane is exploded. I don't know, something that makes meaningful and so forth, so on. So now if you look, when this thing happens, we get an exception, and the user over here could decide if they want to use print or something else. I'm telling you already, for this lab, whoever is following with me in the labs is going to eventually turn into visual graphics. So there will be no, what do you call it? No system.out.println, no, oh my God, I'm having no terminal. There we go. No command line, no terminal, no nothing to see. So when we execute it, we won't have this type of message. Okay. So now we could do the same thing for everything else, right? And the moment that the thing is actually correct, so such as this, we're going to remove it and put it right after. Why would this work even though we got these errors? That's because the moment, remember in the video, the moment a command, a statement throws an exception, it will not reach the next statement inside that try catch block. And this is how we know it was successful, because it didn't throw anything. So this is a good way to deal with the separation of concern. We want to let the user, the caller of our method know that there was an issue, but we don't want to deal with it for them. You want to let them deal with it. The same thing, the file input output thing. When our scanner was getting a file, it was the job of I to determine how I would tell the user that that file doesn't exist and you need to do something for it. Same thing goes here. Okay? I'll see you guys in the next video.